Tonight, 3 whistleblowers say security at Australian military bases and embassies has been significantly compromised by deliberate fabrication of information to fast-track security clearances. The 3 former defence workers say they were given direct instructions by senior defence staff to fabricate security checks on civilian and military personnel. They say the fake security clearances have left a gaping hole in Australia's national security and compromised ASIO's records. John Stewart has this exclusive report.
Monica Bennett-Ryan, Janice Waitman and Owen Lakem worked at the Defence Security Authority in Brisbane between 2009 and 10. The Defence Security Authority, or DSA, is an arm of the Defence Department that is responsible for conducting security checks on Australian military and government personnel.
These clearances were being done for military personnel, for government employees of all kinds across the board in different areas, including, those that work in any sensitive area.
The 3 former DSA staff were employed through a labour hire company, which supplied office staff to the Defence Department.
I went all the way from the lowest restricted, confidential, and then I went to secret, and then top secret negative vetting, and then there's one higher than that, it's top secret positive vetting, and I'd been through all of them.
The 3 had jobs called coords, which involved checking documents supplied by people who'd applied for a security clearance. Once the checks were complete, a report was sent to ASIO to see whether the applicant was a person of interest on the ASIO database. The DSA does security checks on a wide range of people, including private security guards working on Australian military bases, Australian staff working in embassies overseas, air marshals, senior public servants with access to sensitive information, and defence personnel, including intelligence officers. In 2009, the DSA was processing about 23,000 security checks per year. The 3 former staff say that a large backlog of applications began to build up, and pressure was mounting to process the security clearances faster.
The pressure on you to process it and get them out quickly is high. So if you don't meet those standards and meet that pressure to get your numbers up, then you're going to lose your job.
It was this pressure that the 3 say led to what they believe are thousands of falsified security checks, with information invented to fill in gaps on security applications, including top secret level clearances sent to ASIO.
Information like where you live or previous employments, they didn't really care about that stuff. Just make it up, put in some dates, put unemployed for periods that were missing, addresses, just put the area address, find a street, or kind of make some information up to fill in those gaps.
And they say the instructions to invent false information from the lowest to the highest levels of security clearances came directly from senior defence staff.
There was a large percentage of the applications that came my way that did have gaps, did have problems that needed to be phoned up about. I would think probably at least 25%. And the analysts started to get impatient with me because he said, well, this is what you do. And we do this all the time, and this is manufacturing certain birth dates, filling in gaps of addresses.
I put a couple aside, about 3 or 4 applications aside from this day's work, and I said, are these, this has this problem, this has this problem, this has this problem, this has this problem, there's not enough addresses here, there's no proper dateline for employment, think questions like that. And one of them didn't have a birth certificate. And so it was a case of these problems exist, and what do you want me to do about it? And I was told these words, be creative.
The 3 former DSA staff say the information they invented was done at the behest of their Defence Department bosses, who didn't want to make the extra phone calls.
Trying to fill those gaps and making it less of a problem for senior management and the other vetting officers was probably the main priority as a co-auditor.
The 3 also say that travel information in top-secret clearances was invented about where civilian and defence personnel had been overseas and who they'd met. They also claim that the falsification of security checks included those of staff who were applying to work in Australian embassies.
Sometimes they wouldn't give the city that they went to in a certain country. You just pick a city that they went to. Sometimes some would write Asia, so you just pick a country and that, and certain things like that.
So an applicant could say they travel in Asia,
yeah,
and then you would just make up that they...
I would choose China because it's one of the main countries in Asia.
All 3 former DSA staff say the biggest compromise to security vetting involved a failure to check private security guards who had applied to work on Australian military bases. The former DSA staff say they were told to invent information in the guards' applications to fast-track the process.
It was their addresses, their workplaces. They didn't give all their information about relatives, etc. So it was bypassed. Some of the people didn't even supply birth certificates, and that was just let go. They were from all over the world, and some of them were from places where our men are fighting.
Who knows who was on the military bases? Who knows about their background? When there was so many lies, falsifications, outright fabrication mixed in with truth, it just rendered the whole thing nonsense. And how can we, when there were so many like that, who can say which ones are correct?
The offshoot of the falsifying of documents is that there is now a gaping hole in Australia's security, and this has potentially terrible repercussions, particularly for our military men.
The former DSA staff believe that all private security guards working on Australian military bases now need to have their security clearances rechecked.
Do you think there'd be hundreds or thousands of clearances that were compromised?
I'd think thousands.
And so ASIO now has a whole batch of false information mixed with true information, and no one is able to work that out. No one can find... ASIO wouldn't be able to go through and work out which was true and which was false. So the only way to do this is to redo all of the security guards' applications for security clearances. And that's what I would like to